Hello, everyone. This is EJ Schultz, news editor at Ad Age, and welcome to a special bonus edition of the Marketer's Brief podcast. Today, we're starting a new series looking into moves brands are making around so-called purpose marketing, including sustainability marketing. And joining us at least once a month is Thomas Kolster, who is the founder and creative director at Copenhagen-based Goodvertising Agency, which advises companies and organizations on how to turn environmental, societal, and health risks into market opportunities. Welcome, Thomas.
Thank you so much. And for the first time, getting 2 for 1, it's not the most sustainable thing normally, but, lucky listeners, right?
We'll make it work. Before we get started, I do want to kind of set the tone for what our listeners can expect through this series. Basically, we're not going to pull any punches. We plan to explore the biggest do-good trends, initiatives, and campaigns, but with an aim to peel away the political correctness, the self-glorification, and the virtue to see both sides of the coin. And you are the right guy to help us do that, Thomas. You've been studying this stuff for many years, and you like to call it like it is, right?
I'll try doing my best. I'm a Dane, and we sort of kind of known for just saying things as they are. So let's get a go at it.
All right, let's get started. So we're starting this at the perfect time. We're not even quite 2 weeks removed from Earth Day, which is, of course, the time when so many brands come out and declare how environmentally great they are. It's a time when we see a lot of campaigns, whether it's just a daily tweet or a larger effort. And I picked a few that we can kind of look at. But first, what is your general impression on Earth Day as a marketing opportunity? Is it gone too far? Is it become not what it was supposed to be originally?
I mean, it's so weird because Earth Day, I remember actually going to the beach and picking up plastics when I was a kid. So I think it's been going since the 1970s, and it's been inspiring like millions of people across the planet. So in so many ways, you would expect that since every brand is talking about this these days, that this would be the one opportunity. I think my beef with how Earth Day has become, it's almost like every marketeer always uses this as an opportunity to sell more, right? I mean, we just came out of Easter, go buy chocolate. Valentine's Day, it's about flowers. Earth Day, it's just go buy something, and it's sort of good for the polar bear. And I think this is where I think marketers need to think twice about how they actually use their advertising during Earth Day, because it's going to come out as insincere, I feel.
But yet there were some good, honest efforts. And some of the things we're going to talk about were not necessarily like Earth Day themed per se, but it was a chance for brands to come out and with their sort of environmentally focused campaigns, because people are sort of paying attention to that kind of stuff this time of year. Let's kick things off with a campaign you actually came across. It's called the Palau Legacy Project, Allow Palau, if I'm pronouncing that right. And it comes from, I believe, Host Tavas was the agency behind this one. And it's essentially a tourism campaign for the country of Palau, which is in the Western Pacific. But it's a very different kind of tourism campaign. Let's just give a quick listen so our listeners can get a feel for what this is all about.
So much of our natural world, no matter how fragile, can be accessed for a price. But the real cost is higher than many realize. While tourism is vital to Palau, its impact threatens our environment and culture. And so, we are inviting you to access our most treasured natural and cultural wonders, not according to how much you spend, but by how gently and respectfully you treat our island home. All out, it's a Palauan invitation, extended not to visitors, but to trusted and respected friends.
So the ad goes on from there, and I should say most of the stuff we're going to listen to today is video. So we'll post the actual videos on the adage.com site that you can also listen to this podcast on. Thomas, do you want to explain the gist of this? It's more than an ad. This is basically an experience they're touting, right?
Yeah, for me, this was one of my favorites, in fact, that I saw during Earth Day, because they solve stuff. I mean, tourism. Obviously, now we've been through the pandemic, but we've seen the damaging sides of tourism, and this little campaign does this clever trick where they sort of reward people for the right environmental behaviors. And so, saying you wear reef safe sunscreen, or you choose more carbon friendly transportation. And by doing that, you can get access to areas that you normally wouldn't get access to. So I think for me, this is a sort of clever way of tapping into behavior change and actually inspiring people to do something differently. And so for me, I think that's what Earth Day is about, right? That is sort of us getting our changing our behaviors, going out there, exploring nature in a different way. So I think they did it well. And I remember the Palau Pledge, which was one of my old favorites that won many awards a couple of years back.
And we've seen a lot of tourism campaigns kind of start to flick at, I believe, more the environmental side of travel. But this one, as you say, gets some real specificity around actions that guests to this island can take, and they'll get rewarded for it through experiences that not all guests can partake in, as long as they do certain things.
I mean, it's clever. I think we've all been there. I mean, we've been, being on that dive boat, and then, some dumbass guy throws a plastic bottle in the ocean. I think we've all seen it when we've been traveling. And I think for Palau to take this upon themselves and not just doing it once, but actually continuing that legacy that they started a couple of years ago, kind of shows the sincerity. So yeah, this is, I think, a great example of what people and what brands should be doing. In fact, enabling change and inspiring people to do things differently.
So before we continue, I want to take a break for a word from our sponsor.
Nielsen's mission is to deliver accurate measurement to power a better media future for all people. As the industry leader and currency of choice, they provide comprehensive, equitable, and unbiased measurement and are continually innovating to help move the industry forward. Their unique approach of using industry-leading big data, validated by a fully representative persons-level panel, makes them the only measurement company that can accurately capture the evolving face of America. Get the facts at nielsen.com/getthefacts.
So the next one we're going to talk about is a much different tone, much more of a humorous tone, but I think you enjoyed this one as well. It comes from an organization called wherefrom.org, which basically runs a website where they say that they are scoring brands basically on sustainability. So you could literally like plug in Coke into the search box on their site and get some sort of score on how well that brand is doing with sustainability. Before we talk about specifics, I think we should listen a little bit to this one as well.
There's lots of eco-branding out there, and it seems like they care, but we just know that they're greenwashing. The statements that these companies make are generic and vague. They're everywhere like the plague. Greenwashing. And so here at Where From, we've done this for you. We've copywritten these taglines, it's true. And if giant brands try to use them, we're going to sue. Here we go. Green is our nature, green to our core. Go green, do more. Green is what the future is for. Greenwashing.
So that ad goes on for another 3 minutes. It's a little long, but the end of it, they direct people to a website called stopthewash.com, where they have a claim on there that they describe this effort around. They basically say they created this pop anthem with over 100 green slogans as lyrics, and they claim that they're all copyrighted under UK law, and if a company uses one of them, they'll get sued. So basically, this is their way of calling bullshit on a lot of these environmental ads, which of course the phrase greenwashing has become very popular when it comes to this stuff. Why did you like this effort?
I almost feel like this could be the theme song of our sort of bonus podcast.
Except they would sue us.
They would probably sue us or applaud us, in fact. But, you know, I think the challenge today in this space, and I think we've seen that during Earth Day as well, is that there's just so much purpose nonsense out there. There's so many, taglines: do good for people and planet, do this and that, believe in this and that. And, I think this ad just does it spot on, and it actually sort of talks to a lot of the cynicism that I think a lot of us is feeling in this space. I mean, I think we love that brands are standing up and solving some of society's challenges, but I think it's just authenticity that's the issue so often. And I think that's also why it's such a brilliant ad to launch on Mother's Day, because by the end of the day, most of this stuff is, buy this and be nice to Mother Earth. That's half of the stuff that we've been seeing this Mother's Day, right? Or Mother's Day, Earth Day, Mother Earth Day.
You just came up with your own slogan.
Exactly. Yeah.
You had sent this to me, and I'm not familiar with this group. Are they well known? Wherefrom.org is the site credible? I'm just curious. And are we seeing more of this stuff where we have these third parties come up to basically judge brands on their sustainability?
I think this has been an ongoing journey the last 10 to 15 years. I think these seems to be, new guys on the block, to be honest. I mean, some of the early ones that I knew of was sites like Good Guide, where you could go in and you could sort of get an environmental score, etc. But I think it really speaks to this thing that how can regular folks cut through all the messaging, through all the purpose wash, through whatever claims are out there. And right now, I think a lot of people look to third parties, certifications, etc. And so I think for a lot of brands, this is a sort of trust building exercise to be certified and to be trustworthy in that sense.
Mm-hmm. Are you seeing brands having to pay more attention? I mean, I'm assuming they're, like you just mentioned a few, there's so many of these outfits. How many of these can consumers trust? And if I'm a brand, how much should I be paying attention to these things, like to make sure I'm not being misjudged, right? Or it's, do they have all the right info? If I'm Coke, right? Like, could this cause my brand damage if they don't have all the accurate information and people start using this stuff and actually influencing their behavior?
You know what? I think there's already a trust issue. If you think I have to look it up, it's like if you go on a date and you kind of have to look up somebody's criminal record, I think you're already sort of not trusting that individual or that brand. So I think by the end of the day, it comes back to the brand. And I think this is also my beef with a lot of the certification out there, is that, just because you add a certificate, you're not solving the brand issue that people don't trust you. They just don't trust your claims. So work on the brand before you go sort of the certification route.
Interesting. We're actually seeing this in the agency space too, like trying to become B Corp certified. Does that make a difference? Do you have an opinion on that?
Oh wow, we could do a whole podcast around B Corps. I think B Corps is it's a certification, but it's also sort of a process, which I like about the B Corp certification, in the sense that it's a score that you're constantly pushing to improve. Mm-hmm. So in that sense, you might come in at the lower 70s, and then you kind of try and work yourself up to the 80s or 90s or whatever. So in that sense, I think it's not just a certification, but it's also a sort of methodology and a program, sort of like a little climate coach that's sort of built into the program, that I like about that. But just looking at, the certification in itself, I don't think that's enough. And will we arrive at a time where brands only will buy from agencies that are B certified? I don't think so. But I definitely think that brands today are evaluating a lot of other parameters than we used to see before, such as diversity, such as what other accounts does that agency have? Are there sort of fossil fuel clients or whatever it might be?
Yeah, we'll save that as a larger topic for maybe one of our future podcasts, but I wanted to touch on it briefly. The last ad we're going to break down is, I'll let you be the judge, Thomas. It comes from BMW, and we've seen a slew of EV, electric vehicle advertising last year. We dominated the Super Bowl when it came to automotive brands. This one's a unique approach. I don't even know if I can do it justice in terms of trying to describe it. Again, I'll remind folks they can view this ad on adage.com. But let's try to take a listen and we'll give it our best attempt to describe it afterwards.
Time. An endless cycle of cause and effect. Past, present, future. Spools of moments threading a loom, woven and pulled loose. All things connected. And yet we chase it, fixated on what comes next, imagining, tinkering, accountable to what's left behind. So we take our time, balance progress with beauty.
So that you heard the audio, you wouldn't even know this is a car ad through the audio, but it's basically showing, I guess, this sort of a mountainous desert sort of landscape, and the last shot shows a BMW sort of balancing on its front fender vertically. What the heck is this, Thomas?
I'm just sort of zooming out, as when my mother was trying to teach me French back in school. I'm not really listening to what they're saying. I think this is sort of the classic example of what I call the narcissist. It's like, let's love Mother Earth, but really love my brand. I mean, the way they go in there and they will talk about their journey towards a climate neutral future, I'm just not buying it. I'm not buying the spiel, and it just seems a bit contrived. It's Earth Day. Is this the best you can do, honestly? And for me, I think that's a good example of what we've also been seeing during Pride, where it almost seems like the brand just try and capitalize on this quite important day that a lot of people around the world, hundreds of millions of people, actually take quite seriously. And so for BMW to be talking about themselves rather than actually trying to understand what this movement in fact means. The whole Earth Day theme this year is invest in our planet. And I don't really feel that we get that sentiment out of this commercial. But again, that might just be me.
So the lesson there is not to talk about yourself, or if you do talk about yourself as a brand, talk about what you're doing, right? And more specifically, rather than just sorting this overly serious dialogue. And, is that the point?
I think a lot of us want to live more sustainably and want to do our part on Earth Day. And obviously for brands just to be talking about itself and what it does is really not helping us. And it's almost like, I would rather have had, I saw another sort of category of ads during Earth Day, which was sort of, this is better for Mother Earth, buy this. But I sort of better like that, whether it was Wrangler, who sort of launched these sort of 70s inspired jeans that were more consciously made. At least I get that, they give us an alternative, something else. Obviously, unfortunately, they're still saying buy this. But I really think there's a shift happening right now where sort of that cynicism that was also so brilliantly expressed in the little Stop the Wash, in the Stop the Wash lyrics, I think that just speaks to how we all feel. And I think BMW isn't really solving anything by running an ad like that.
Before we move on to the next topic, there's one other campaign I wanted to get your thoughts on quickly. We actually wrote about this at Ad Age on our creativity site. It's another car brand, Honda, but this is definitely much more on the, I guess, functional side of things, or something practical that they're doing. This comes from Ogilvy, Peru, and it has to do, the problem they're trying to solve is how there's something like 1 million trees that are cut down in the Amazon because of harvesting a rainforest fruit that grow on palm trees that are something like 35 meters high. And so what Honda did was they created what they called a vertical bike that basically carries farmers up the trees, which they say eliminates the need to cut them down for this harvest. Why did you like this? Or did you like this? I think you did, but let me know.
No, I definitely did. I think, at least a brand now is, using its ingenuity and creativity to come up with a solution to a problem. And they're still sort of in the realm of what they do. And I think not only just providing because usually what those farmers would do is to cut down the trees because that would be a faster way of harvesting, which in some instances doesn't really make us a lot of sense because that'll ultimately kill or ruin their livelihood, right? So I think this is an example of a brand that steps in and finds a solution. And again, for me, this is a brilliant example. And it's also an example of what sort of the agency side of the business can do, in fact, if it really want to sort of bring creativity to the table.
We only have a few more minutes left, but I wanted to touch on not necessarily an Earth Day campaign, but something that Hellmann's has been doing now for a couple of years. Unilever-owned brand, mayonnaise brand, of course. They started talking about food waste. They've been doing this Super Bowl, but they came out with, we actually wrote about this at Ad Age recently. They came out with basically an ad where they showed a refrigerator, and then there was a tiny little message written inside the refrigerator where they basically had a giveaway that they said if anyone that direct messaged the brand, they would give a $1,600 prize. And then they told our Ad Age reporter about this, that no one actually saw the message in the ad. And they used that as a hook to say that basically, you know, people are not paying enough attention to food waste or something along those lines. Pretty gimmicky, right? But I wanted to talk about this larger effort from Hellmann's. Like, you talk about, does a brand have a right to speak on a certain topic? Do you think this has been an effective way, you know, for how, like a good issue for Hellmann's to talk about food waste?
You know what? I think they are, they're in a way getting it right because they're not talking about themselves. They are trying to add usefulness to our lives and found this, you know, make taste, not waste strapline, and they invested in Super Bowl as well, which I think also shows that they're quite serious. They've been doing it for a number of years right now. And in that sense, I think they become more of a helper. When you're in the kitchen, you're like, just the other day, you know, you have a tin of tuna and you're like, oh, what should I do with that stuff? You got some mayo, you got some other stuff. So I think there's a product relevance, there's a product inside, and it's pretty hard to point fingers at Hellmann's on this specific topic. And I think that's also the hard thing about purpose, that it's not one thing you can sort of do one day and then you solve the whole thing. It's sort of like you're sort of slowly building that legacy and then that trust from consumers. Again, one thing though, in terms of Hellmann's is also that sort of the advertised story is always just the tip of the iceberg. And I think, again, obviously you've got to take your own medicine. And for example, one of the beefs that I have with Hellmann's that I don't think they do well is at the moment, obviously they've been on mission to go with cage-free eggs. But I'm also like, come on, you can do that much better. I mean, you know, set those hens free, go organic, go biodynamic. So again, I think it always has to be both what you as a company are doing internally and how you are constant journey of improvement, and then obviously bring that out to the consumers, ordinary folks, and be useful in their lives.
All right. I think we're going to have to leave it there, Thomas. We're just getting started. We have plenty more to talk about in the coming months, but I want to thank you again for your time. That was Thomas Kolster of the Goodvertising Agency. Thanks for the discussion.
No, thanks, and see you soon again.
All right. And I also want to thank our producer, Lauren Ciardio. And please, everyone, subscribe to the Marketer's Brief podcast on your favorite channel. We'll be back in a couple of days with our next episode, and back in at least a month with another edition of our sustainability conversations with Thomas Kolster. Thanks again. We'll catch you next time, everyone.